diversifying yourself across, budget, genre, an array of things. I mean, that's always going to give you the best chance at success, so that you can pivot and prioritize whatever has the most momentum. Again, producing is very daunting. For every project I get off the ground successfully, there's probably 3 to 5 that never see the light of day. But that's also an interesting point, is that you need to diversify yourself, whether you're an actor, a writer, a director, a producer, whatever you're doing. Hollywood, to an extent, is a numbers game. And by diversifying yourself, it's going to serve several purposes. First of all, again, nothing's ever a one size fits all. When you get fixated on one particular project, you get to a point after you hear no enough where you almost start to get desperate about it. Just because you're sitting in front of a prospective investor doesn't mean it's the right investor for your project. Thematically or tonally, or the amount of money you're chasing, whatever, might not fit a particular prospective investor, or distributor, same thing. So by diversifying yourself and always focusing on multiple projects, it's going to allow you to pivot. It's going to give you a lot more momentum, a lot more synergy, and also a lot more peace of mind. I see people come apart because they get so frustrated trying to force their one project forward. And I'll give you an example. I was just in Cannes a few weeks ago for the market, and I was chasing the acquisitions executive from one of the big studios. I'll keep it somewhat anonymous, but I'd been chasing this individual for a while, finally booked the meeting. Of course, he didn't show up for that meeting, chased him down. He ended up showing up, a day or two later, finally got the meeting. There was one particular project that I was trying to put in front of this acquisitions executive. And this is a project I'm pre-selling. This isn't something that's been done yet. This is something I'm putting together and trying to get funded. The guy finally comes over, sits down at my booth, and before I can even go into it, he shuts me down. He says, "We're not doing this project because of A, B, and C." He said, "So what else do you have?" If I didn't have anything else, that conversation would have been done. The guy had been chasing for months. Literally, the conversation would have just been, "So what party are you going to tonight?" But all of a sudden, I open the catalog and I say, "I'm working on this. I'm working on this." One of the other projects that I'm developing got him very interested. Now I'm in a conversation with that executive about a totally different project. So again, the point being, by diversifying yourself across multiple projects, it's going to give you much more chances for success. And again, same thing as an actor, same thing as a director, writer, producer, whatever.
Yeah.
You have to be flexible. You have to be able to pivot, because if not, you're looking for the perfect scenario. You're looking for the perfect storm that may never find you. Right. So I hope that answers that question.
It does, yeah. I think one of the things that it kind of addresses, because that was one of the lessons I did learn, because I still have a miniseries that's been optioned multiple times. It's been looked at by Sci-Fi, NBC. There have been some pretty serious meetings with Bad Robot, things like that. The problem we had with it in terms of dialogue was just the scope is massive. It's a kind of an epic miniseries set on Mars and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, my partner and I, we actually, sorry to interrupt, we actually had a pilot that we did. We shot a pilot better part of a decade ago, very prominent cast, very prominent people involved. But it was a massive scope in terms of, it was very visual effects driven and whatnot. And everybody wanted to talk about it, but people had trouble wrapping their mind around the scope of it. And only now that virtual production has kind of come into its own, all of a sudden people are revisiting it and have taken a renewed interest. So again, it's like, we had to put it on the shelf, but now all of a sudden it's like there's new circumstances that have provided a potential pathway for it. So
yeah, because it's like you said, some things are they're exciting, but they're also so big that it brings in all kinds of complexities
Sure.
You're going to have to figure out how different studios share a $50 million budget or whatever it happens to be to make it happen. And that I ran into the same issue that you just mentioned, which was that they were like, well, what else do you have? And at the time, I didn't have much. I think I had one other script, but after that, I started kind of doing things at different budget levels. I did kind of wrote something that was mid and low. So I've encountered other problems as a result of sort of realizing how you negotiate around each of those things. But at the very least, that was a good fundamental lesson that you've just affirmed there. So
it's very applicable to budget too. If you have, if your dream project or your priority project is $1.5 million and you're sitting in front of somebody who's like, that's out of my comfort zone or my risk appetite, but I want to do something for $250,000. It would be a shame to not have something that is appropriate for that. As an independent filmmaker, I can always pivot and be like, well, I have another project that might be more appropriate to talk about. Right. Or you're sitting in front of somebody who's like, you're trying to pitch a horror film, and maybe you're sitting in front of somebody who just doesn't have the appetite for a horror film or something else. So again, just the point being is always be flexible in terms of diversifying across genre, across budget level, and whatever gets the momentum, that's what gets prioritized. Literally diversifying yourself across budget, genre, an array of things. I mean, that's always going to give you the best chance at success, so that you can pivot and prioritize whatever has the most momentum. I mean, for me, the funny thing is like 2 weeks ago, project A was my priority because it was moving the fastest. Now all of a sudden something else has gotten the momentum, and now that's being prioritized. So it's like you just have to be flexible.
I found myself understanding that you need to create leverage, you need to create something that's investable, but I guess it's like trying to play whack-a-mole a little bit until you have an understanding of how to set up the structure. Because you might get interest from a reasonably well-known director, but then that guy disappears just as you've got another actor who's got some leverage, and trying to piece together the plan for the investors to kind of go, we can hit a green light on this. That's another tricky part at whatever level, I guess.
Well, I'll make your head spin with demystifying a couple other things. One of the other biggest misfires I see from independent filmmakers is their budget is completely arbitrary. People are, they have a total missense of the value of their film. I think the assumption is, well, we spent $1 million, so my film is worth at least $1 million or more. But the fact is just because you spent $1 million does not mean your film is worth $1 million in the marketplace. So as distributors, and this is why for me, I spent years chasing money. I don't chase money anymore. I chase distribution. If I have the distribution, the money is not as big of a challenge. So that's the big awakening, for me as a distribution professional. But we know how to reverse engineer a budget. And I might think that a movie, break it down and do estimates and get intel from my clients in other countries and whatnot, and I get a sense for the real numbers that I'm going to get for a project. I might realize my $2 million budget isn't viable and I need to get it down to 1.4. So, and this happens all the time. I had a project a few years ago, passion project. I had massive A-listers attached. I had 3 huge A-listers attached. Basically, my co-writer on it, who's also the director, he had a great career as an actor. He got a major A-list actor attached to it, and then based on the attachment of that actor, another big A-list actor came on because they wanted to work together. And it was this like domino effect of amazing talent that found magnetism to this project. Well, the problem is the project was supposed to be around $7 million. As soon as all these major people got attached, the budget ballooned to almost 13. We took the project to Berlin, to the film market. This is pre-pandemic, to pre-sell it. And the pre-sale numbers that were coming back were only validating about an $8 million budget. So there's an example of, I had huge A-list talent attached to a project and it wasn't going to move forward because the distribution numbers, the real market numbers, were not validating where the budget had ballooned to. So, that happens a lot. People think, oh, if you have the talent, it's no problem. The money just follows. That's not always the case. There is a formula to it.
Right.
And one of the most unfortunate parts of the business is that distributors they're intensely formulaic, and more often than not, they're not creative.
Right.
So, therein lies, talking about bridging the gap between the creative and the business. Distributors, I sit with distributors from all over the world, and you'd be surprised. You'd like to say, I have something unique nobody's ever done, and that would excite them. That's not the case. They literally open the catalog, they point to like a B movie, and they're like, that did well for us. We want something just like that. Right. And that's why you see the same formulaic movies with the same actors being made over and over and over. Mm-hmm. So again, there's a lot of realities to the business, and that the creatives are not necessarily in tune with. And those are all the lessons that I learned the hard way.